Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guest. Communicating is something that comes very naturally to us. Yet there is a difference between merely talking and good conversations. Good conversation skills need to be learned, and that requires practice, and it offers many rewards. Learning to strike up and continue a lively discussion can make you feel very comfortable in work or social situations. I've read that someone said, every great relationship, be it personal or professional, begins with a conversation. So let's look at some useful tips on how to, on some guidelines on how to improve in this area. Firstly, introduce yourselves. If you want to start a conversation, the easiest thing to do is to step up to the person, smile, make eye contact, extend your hand, say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, what's yours?" It immediately connects, and that person, that's the first impression that you create, and it sparks a connection. Secondly, ask questions and show interest. When you meet someone for the first time, ask them to tell you something about themselves. That creates a good rapport. Where do you come from is a great icebreaker. Just a few days ago at church, a perfect stranger and I had a good 10-minute conversation just because he stepped up to me and said, "Where do you come from?" Of course, that works well with foreigners. Say something complimentary. Compliments like, "That's a nice tie you're wearing," or "Great haircut," immediately gets the attention of the person you're talking to. And he'll be eager to know more about what you have to say. Ask open-ended questions. Move beyond the usual yes and no's. Ask questions that require an explanation, and not a mere yes or no for an answer. Questions like, "What's keeping you busy these days?" Or, "What are you working on now?" Use appropriate body language. Be sure to smile and nod when someone is talking to you. That shows that you want the conversation to continue and that you enjoy it. But if you don't make eye contact or you stand rigidly with your arms crossed, it sends out signals that you want the conversation to end. Brush up on current events. Make sure that you spend some time every day to read the news headlines and interesting news stories. That helps you talk intelligently whenever you make a conversation. So if a conversation stalls, you can say something like, "Did you hear about that?" and state an interesting fact. And the other thing is, if you're going to meet professionals in a group, it's always advisable to read something about the industry before you meet up. Keep track of new and interesting experiences. What have you done recently that has excited you or interested you? A trip to the museum, a day out fishing, Moroccan food. New and interesting activities and experiences always provide food for stimulating conversation. Listen. This is a very important rule in conversation. Ironically, the key to the art of conversation is not in the talking, but in the listening. Listen more than you would talk. Try to avoid what you would call conversational narcissism, that is, focusing the conversation around oneself. Instead, divert the limelight to the other person, draw him to the center, show genuine interest in what is spoken. Add words like, or "uh-huh," or "that's interesting," and that will help the person say more about himself. Think before you speak. This is the one rule that can help you avoid most foot-in-mouth moments. Avoid offending anybody, and do not make statements that are laden with value judgments. For instance, instead of saying, "The boss boss sure is a moron. You could ask, what do you think of the boss's new reorganization proposal? Do not interrupt the speaker. Actually, there are two forms of interruption. The obvious one is stopping a person mid-sentence, and that's easy to avoid. Wait for the person to complete before you respond. The second one is more subtle. It's when we use phrases like, that reminds me, or oh, by the way. You send out signals that you want to digress or that the person is not talking something that's relevant to you. It's rude to interrupt somebody's conversation or train of thought. It's also rude to take a conversation off tangent. When you're talking to people in a group, do not talk just to one person. That leaves the others in the periphery dangling, and that's a very awkward situation. Always make eye contact with everyone, and it's not just about the physical conversing with a person, but it's also about the topics that are spoken of. So you should bring up topics that are ones that everyone can talk about and chime in. So our speech is a very powerful gift that we have. So whether you're talking to somebody who's a friend that you've known since the age of 5 or to a new acquaintance, your speech should be gracious and edifying. It should build up the other person and offer encouragement, praise, and good advice. Mr. Toastmaster.